Thank you very much, and a very good morning from Brussels to all of you. Today, I would like to present a little bit the LEADER program, and in particular, how it contributes to fighting depopulation and how we see it from Brussels' perspective. So these are our rural areas, and I think we feel good about them. We look at the beauty, at nature, space, fresh air. And it's true that rural areas present very good open space, better quality of life, maybe more cheaper life, lower living standards, and less pollution. However, that's not quite true. Very often, these advantages can be outweighed by disadvantages, such as fewer jobs, especially quality jobs, weaker infrastructure, less information, less transport, communication networks, but also access to healthcare or other public services, or even private entertainment or shopping outlets. And people weigh the advantages and disadvantages, and then they make a decision. This is particularly true for young people. And if they feel their better life opportunities are elsewhere, which means if the disadvantages outweigh the advantages, they decide to leave. When they leave, it's a very big problem for those areas and regions, and it concerns particularly predominantly rural regions, because we have aging population and fewer people of working age. That's more or less, in very, very broad and simple terms, the phenomenon of depopulation. Here you see some numbers prepared by Eurostat about the population structure, age structure, and the change between 2015 and 2022. At the top layer, you see young people, then middle layer is working age, and then older people who are above the working age. So you see that in all types of areas, predominantly urban areas, intermediate areas, and rural areas, we are all getting older. The number of older people is increasing, but it is increasing at a higher rate with predominantly rural areas, and the working population is increasing in the urban areas, but it is decreasing in the intermediate and predominantly rural areas. When we look at the map of regions at NUTS3 area, you see the geography of the population. It's quite scary, actually. You see at the edges of the European Union, in the south and in the east, very quickly depopulating areas. The red ones are the worrying ones. And that phenomenon is also likely to continue, because the Eurostat data that shows how the population change is projected between 21 and 2050 is also showing the decreasing population in predominantly rural areas. So the picture of natural phenomenon, of this social phenomenon, is not really optimistic. That is also the reason why we need a policy response. In the European Union, we have what is called a long-term vision for rural areas, including a rural action plan. And in this plan, there is a platform of rural revitalization. And it offers quite a useful, I would say, conceptual way of thinking of the policy response to the negative phenomenon of the population. The first thing when you see this policy response is that, without even reading what's written here, is that it has very many components. Each area can actually access this tool and then make a little assessment of where they are on this. So on the external sides, you see various, I would call it, components of assets or in economic terms, capital. And inside, you see a lot of aspects of governance. So in order to effectively deal with rural depopulation, many components are needed. So there is, of course, an aspect of services and infrastructure, environment, jobs, digital technology, but also basic supplies. Inside there are aspects relating to governance, such as various integrated strategies at various levels, national level, regional level, and local level, multi-level governance. All actors are important. Local capacities, including human capital, territorial cooperation, and local innovation. I made here a link of where you can access this platform and look in detail a little bit about your area. I think it's quite a strategic and coherent approach. Why? There's also one very important aspect where this depopulation or regions that are left behind are important. It is because of geography of this content. And this content means also has very, very big implications for European democracy and European votes. There is a paper prepared by the Committee of Regions where it shows the rural areas and geography of this content, and there is a clear link between this in terms of political choices. And that's another source of the reason why we care about it. Now, when I look at this big picture, where there is a strong phenomenon of depopulation, and there is a need for policy response, but this policy response has to be in many different levels and in many different components. That's where I would like to place leader in it. It is useful, but it cannot solve it all. Leader is part of the European Common Agricultural Policy, where each member state has to program it. There is about 5 billion euro programmed for this program, for this intervention in the programming period 2023-27. About 2,700 local action groups to be supported, or actually they are being supported, and 65% of rural population in the European Union are covered by local development strategies. The minimum allocation is 5%, and most of member states are at 5%. However, there are some that are higher, and Spain is amongst them, also Germany. Leader offers quite small resources, I would say. Very often the resources per one local development strategies are in the range of 1.5 to 2.5 million euro per the whole programming period. However, in some regions, they are much higher. And one of the example is some regions of Spain. But by nature, the fact that the leader offers smaller resources also means that they do smaller local projects. And the value of leader is not only by these projects, and I will explain later what they are and how they contribute to counteracting the population, or at least keeping people a little bit more incentivized to stay. But there is also other values of leader that are equally important. So I try to show you leader as a small part of a much bigger puzzle, policy puzzle, or its place in the multi-level governance. It will contribute, it does contribute, but for sure it is not going to fix the population alone. Here I listed a few components when you look back to the big policy mix from the Rural Revitalization Platform, and I want to show you what is the leader contribution. So first of all, I would like to look at the inner part of this diagram. I showed you various strategies and governance aspect. And I think here leader is very, very suitable by its method. And it does contribute to the right policy mix. In what way? First of all, there is local governance, bottom-up process, and the local communities are taking decisions on integrated local development strategies in a participatory manner. And they define the needs and priorities. And we see that in general, this participatory manner provides better policy response at the local level. There's also development of local capacities. Decisions are being taken by local communities. And also there is animation and product development skills. This human capital stays there, stays in rural areas. Leader also delivers local innovation, which is of course relative to this rural context. Inherent in the method are also cooperation and networking, and that's a little bit what we are doing now, and I show you how projects, how you can use experience of other communities in building projects. But also what is important, and that aspect was also in this big chart, is building new rural narratives, saying that living in a rural area, it's my house, it's my home, and being proud of it. And there's also reinforcement of community feeling, valorizing local assets, being proud of your local environment. And we see that leader projects do a lot of it. Of course, local development strategies are also delivering projects. And most often these are projects relating to services or small-scale infrastructure, business support, local value projects, as well as social inclusion, including projects for young people. There's also some environmental projects. So as you see, overall, the leader approach is quite consistent with our bigger policy framework that I showed in the revitalization platform. But we must remember that leader is a small local scale initiatives, and links with wider regional and national strategies are absolutely crucial. When I look at the leader across member states in the plans of member states and to which indicators leader contributes, it does support what I said. Leader delivers jobs, it supports rural businesses, services, social inclusion, smart villages, some environmental investments, renewable energy, and to a lesser extent, competitiveness of agri-food sector and in particular short food supply chains. These are the indicators that member states chose based on the local development strategies. So we can see what LEADER is doing across Europe. As I say, the added value of LEADER is not just those projects and delivering grants. It lies in the networks. This is why we are now trying to have a little bit more information about those networks. And based on the partial evidence, we see that LEADER has a very impressive network of members, 120,000 members. But behind the member is not a single organization, but there are social partners, economic partners, local public authorities, and other partners are behind it. And all these organizations and private individuals are committed to local development, and they are financed, at least supported from the European Union. And I think it's a very great power of LEADER and how they interact. And perhaps we should use these networks more. What is even more important is that 25% of the members are directly involved in the decision making. So they are European decision makers and then decide about projects. These are all values contributing to better governance and social capital that then I showed you in the first slide in the bigger framework are conducive to local vitality. One aspect we are also looking at is the share of young people in decision making, as LEADER has been criticized for a lower share, for a low share. Spain is not yet here, and the reason is that the data had been sent by Spain only, I think, recently or a little later than other member states. So I will add Spain later. But you see here that the number of young people is roughly on average 9%, and we consider it not really enough. There are some good examples, Croatia, for example, but we are also encouraging more young people in the decision-making bodies. And one way of encouraging it, which started from the Commission's initiative to build young leader youth community, is now continued by ELART, which is an organization of the European local action groups, where they created a group, a platform for young people involved in LEADER. And we very much support it. And I encourage young people present at this room. I don't see how many they are because I don't see the room, to join and be present. We try to promote this group and listen to them. Even today, just now as I speak, there is commissioners meeting with young people. Commissioner Hansen, just now actually, and one person from the young leader community had been invited. So we want to give them a voice in policy making. Why? Because young people are also fundamental in the whole phenomenon of the population. Okay, these are all nice, big picture things, but I think what is telling and what I think is a big value of the European Union are actually also real project examples and what we can share and what we can learn from them. We have what we call Common Agricultural Policy network where there is a website and there are some events related to the implementation of common agricultural policy. And one part of it where I encourage you to look is a database of good projects. And I have to tell you that I read sometimes from time to time this database just to see the reality behind our policies, and I always feel quite inspired. Here I have selected some leader projects, and I tell you there are many more, which I think illustrate the leader's contribution to the population. So first, there is some examples of projects, and you will see they are small projects, but they matter. These are the projects in the area of services. You will be able to find a description of each of these projects, including lessons learned and failures made, and lessons from the failures, on the website. Here is just a gist of it. The first project, which I really found quite fascinating, is pretty simple, where people try an intergenerational cooperative in rural Germany, in the Eifel region, where people put their time and try to exchange services. For example, older people may have time, they may do some care for children, but also other simple services in this cooperative that are shared. This is also an example of intergenerational solidarity. Another project is in Latvia, where they build a shed, which is a kind of space for men, typically to learn timber crafts, which is a traditional area of crafts for men. And what the men share there is not just timber craft learning, but simple being in a group, and that's also important for mental well-being. And as I said, leader is looking for areas where small money can make a big difference. And I think there's quite an interesting story of a micro initiative fund for young people in Germany. And micro means really micro, because these young people get €1,000 for their local development initiative, but at least they are woken up to initiatives, and they are also involved in decisions. And this is one way of involving young people from the start in a wider community life. There are also some practical examples of projects, such as here supporting the dental practice in Lithuania or a mobile health unit in Finland. The top project is a project which is, I would say, a soft project that tries to visualize how the town centers, small town centers in rural France can be developed. And what's interesting about it is that this exercise of mapping and dreaming together, I would say, or planning together, has been done with the participation of diverse range of stakeholders. Another area which is needed for young people to stay in rural areas is, of course, jobs, particularly quality jobs. And LEADER is very active in supporting rural businesses. Here you have just very few of the very many examples of valorizing traditional products, such as pasta production and degustation in rural Greece, or promotion of organic production in remote areas of Portugal. this promotion of organic production is another feature of Leader. It's done in a kind of network. So various parts of the chain are involved in both production, but also marketing and distribution. Finland is trying to deal with rural working hubs, remote, where people work in joint space. There's also quite an interesting project from Spain about developing new cosmetic products based on traditional honey. And also typical project from Leader trying to develop community-based tourism in rural Lithuania. Here is an example of a game in a particular local destination, which is less visited. I also mentioned the need to improve the narrative of rural, to have a positive narrative, to make sure people feel proud of where they are coming from. And we have here quite a lot of this type of projects. For example, one is about new school curriculum in about rural life. And you see here comic strips from Hungary. Another interesting project, which I think is very simple, but we discussed a lot about it, is reverse mentoring in rural Germany, where young people, you see them here, they are mentors to senior people who are directors or who are in charge of public institutions. And that project apparently proved very, very successful, and it showed young people how they can engage in wider community life. We have also project about giving more voice to rural journalists, to sort of be more in the public sphere, the positive image of rural life more in the media. And I found an interesting project of smart platform on rural life from Spain. And a few projects out of the very many about intergenerational solidarity, the subject of your event. I have found some recreational space, both for children. This is quite popular, but now I notice that it's becoming popular to create also recreational space for all ages, including older people. And that's also a meeting space, and it promotes a more active lifestyle. The project of the factory is where volunteers, both young people and the senior people, are learning a new profession. And in fact, the senior people are instructors for those young people who basically gain confidence when they try to go to the job market. Happy Bunch is another simple project in Finland, where senior people regularly go to kindergartens and make those links with children. And apparently what started from a very small initiative of a weekly visit, it brought quite a sustainable process where both generations are closer together, and it is now becoming I would say, a very important part of social capital of that place in Finland. People don't want to be lonely, and that's why They want to feel a community, they want to be together. And I think that's very universal across all leader projects. On the left, you see an event in the Netherlands, which brings younger people and older people on a joint walk. And then when you walk, you usually talk, and this promotes new discussions, civil engagement, and new social networks. These are just a very few examples that illustrate a need felt by many communities in Europe to try to build or refresh community feeling. I have presented very few projects of the database, which is, I think, more than 1,000 projects. I strongly encourage you to read, maybe if you like some of them, find them in the database and read details of them, because I think they can be replicated. You can also find contacts to start cooperation projects with another local action group in Europe. We have a database there, and we support cooperation projects and this learning. Again, coming back to my big policy framework, cooperation, learning, and links. That's also present in the database. There is a link to the rural revitalization platform. You see the big conceptual policy framework relating to your area. I think it's quite useful to put together your thinking about it. There's also a seminar in the Rural Pact on the population that I linked here. Yeah, that's all there is from me. I could speak much more, but here I'm just showing what rural communities developed for themselves, and I think that's what matters. Thank you.